Hey guys, tonight we're going to sneak into the quiet, papery world of a Han Dynasty bureaucrat's daily grind. Picture this you, in a stiff, slightly itchy linen robe, blinking groggily under the glow of a dim oil lamp, while a rooster screams somewhere in the alley. Your desk is a wobbly slab of lacquered wood, covered in bamboo scrolls, inkstones, and the vague aroma of someone else's breakfast porridge. That's right, you're not a warrior, not a merchant, not even a farmer. You're a paper pusher, a civil servant of the mighty Han Empire. And yes, you probably won't survive this. Between the confusing laws, relentless paperwork, and silent judgment of every fellow clerk, this job is not for the faint-hearted. If you ever thought ancient government life was all incense and wisdom buckle in, you're about to discover that behind every imperial edict was someone like you panicking quietly in a cramped room with ink on their sleeves. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up to the unmistakable screech of the neighbor's rooster, which has somehow decided to start the day a good hour before the sun. No point trying to sleep again. This is Chang'an, the capital. Han bureaucracy doesn't wait. The tiny bedroom is barely wider than your body. You roll off your straw mat, stretch your legs. Both are stiff from yesterday's 5-hour standing session in the magistrate's office. Your knees crack like bamboo joints. You light the lamp with a trembling hand. Still dark outside, but the clock in your mind ticks loud. First things first, grind the ink. The inkstone was a gift from your cousin in Luoyang, slightly chipped on one corner, but it still works. You add a few drops of water. Roll the ink stick slowly. The smell is earthy calming in theory. In practice, it just reminds you of how many character strokes you'll be writing today. Your fingers are already stained dark. A good sign. Means you're a worker. Means you haven't been promoted. As the brush glides against the bamboo slip, your eyes scan the characters from yesterday. You triple check every line. One wrong radical could turn granary into execution field. Not great. Then the scratching begins next door. That'll be old scholar Wen. He's up earlier than the rooster and already practicing brushstrokes again, probably filial piety for the 100th time. You sigh and try not to compare yourself. He passed the local civil exam on his first try. You did not. You dress in layers, under robe, then outer robe, both gray with the faintest hint of mold. Laundry day was supposed to be yesterday, but you forgot again. You knot the sash tightly, slide your official tally stick into the waist fold, and finally fasten your bureau seal around your neck. A wooden stamp, lacquered red, carved with your title, Junior Clerk Tax Scroll Division. Sounds grander than it pays. Historians still argue whether these minor functionaries were truly respected by society or quietly resented. You're leaning toward resented, especially by your neighbors who know you make more than them just for copying scrolls all day. You grab your tablet case, slip in a few blank slips, a dried piece of turnip for later, and swing the door open. The alley smells like soy broth and horse dung. Classic combo. Your commute is a zigzag through mud over a collapsed cartwheel and past a bickering pair of butchers. You dodge a splash from a chamber pot being emptied into the drain. You mutter something not quite a curse and pick up your pace. There's a brief moment of beauty as the horizon begins to warm. Pink light stretches over roof tiles. Dust glimmers in the air like gold flecks. You allow yourself to feel poetic for 3 seconds. Then you remember the magistrate's new policy on lateness. 3 strikes, 1 demotion. And you're already at 2. The building looms into view. Gray brick, carved eaves, and the ominous wooden plaque above the door that reads District Administrative Hall. Inside, everything smells of bamboo mildew and repressed ambition. Your desk is wedged between 2 larger desks, both belonging to senior scribes who will not speak to you unless you sneeze too loudly. You sit, unroll your ink mat, straighten your brush, and brace yourself. Another day of surviving the Han bureaucracy begins. The first task of the morning, as always, is a tire inspection. You wouldn't think the magistrate cared whether your robe collar aligned perfectly with the seam of your inner tunic, but you'd be wrong. Dead wrong. Last week, a clerk showed up with his sash knotted on the right instead of the left. The look the magistrate gave him could have boiled tea. You shuffle into line near the courtyard with the other junior clerks. Everyone stares forward, expressionless, like carved statues. The senior scribe, an old man with eyebrows so long they curl like noodles, walks past slowly. His eyes sweep each of you like a hawk appraising slightly disappointing chicks. He pauses at the clerk next to you. Seals smudged, he grunts. That poor fool's day is already ruined. Then it's your turn. You keep your chin up. Your hat stiff flat and tied awkwardly beneath your chin itches like a barn full of fleas. It's the official clerical square cap, which historians note may have originated from ceremonial headgear used to show submission to law and order. You suspect it was just designed by someone who hated comfort. The old man hums. No correction? You exhale. Victory. You return to your desk, a crooked plank, resting on 2 stone blocks, and begin setting up your tools. Your brush is the same one you've used for months. The handle is worn smooth where your thumb rests. The bristles are a little ragged, like your spirit. You arrange your ink stick and freshly ground ink, carefully adjusting your brush's position for maximum calligraphic dignity. You can't help noticing the clerk opposite you is using black pine ink, the expensive kind. He probably has an uncle in the ministry. A courier walks in carrying scrolls wrapped in red string. Official notices. He drops them onto the main scribe's desk and vanishes like a ghost. You pretend not to care, but inside, you're hoping none of them are addressed to you. Red string usually means corrections, and corrections mean someone's watching. Your first assignment is the day's crop tax register. This means checking recorded grain weights against incoming cart manifests. You begin unraveling a stack of bamboo slips, tied together with twine, each line scribbled with numbers, names, village codes. Most of the characters are familiar, but some are written so hastily you can barely distinguish wheat from millet. One of your colleagues mutters something about lazy scribes from Wuyong. You nod solemnly, though you have no idea where Wuyong is. The hours tick forward. A bell rings somewhere deeper in the complex. It's not lunch yet, but your stomach growls anyway. Halfway through the bundle, you pause. Something doesn't add up. A cart recorded as carrying 60 dan of rice only weighs half that. A clerical error, or a farmer lying. You flag it with a slip of red paper, scribble a note in your neatest script, and place it in the corrections pile. Later, someone higher up will decide whether this earns the farmer a fine or just earns you a lecture for slowing down the paperwork. Your eyes wander briefly to the windows. Outside, the streets are beginning to fill with activity. Market stalls open. Voices rise. Somewhere in the distance, a bell chimes from the temple of the earth god. Back inside, the mood shifts. The magistrate enters. He doesn't need to shout. He doesn't even speak. He just walks slowly along the aisle of desks, hands behind his back, scanning everything like a predatory crane. His robes are dark silk, his hat tall and crisp. A faint aroma of sandalwood follows him. You freeze, not from guilt mostly, but from pure bureaucratic instinct. He stops right behind you, looks down. Then, in the flattest voice imaginable, says, "You use the old abbreviation for tax remittance. You die a little inside. I expect it in the current form tomorrow. Carry on." He moves on. Your hands are shaking. You reach for your inkstone and try to calm yourself with the methodical rhythm of brushwork. Historians still argue whether magistrates had genuine administrative skill or were simply political appointees with good connections. Based on your current experience, you'd vote for yes. Across the room, a scribe coughs nervously. Someone else spills a few drops of ink onto their robe. The room smells like nerves and pine soot. By mid-morning, your vision blurs. You pause to stretch, popping your back in at least 4 different places. A senior clerk walks past with a stack of documents taller than his head. He groans audibly, but no one helps. It's an unspoken rule of the office: help no one, blame everyone, and never run out of ink. Suddenly, you remember, today's the day the magistrate reviews junior performance logs. You grope for your copy and realize you forgot to update your scroll with last week's filing numbers. Panic sets in. You dip your brush quickly and start adding entries. Line after line, you fabricate mildly impressive numbers that sound vaguely realistic, but not too ambitious. Compiled, 213 slips. Reviewed, 45 manifests. Filed, 98. Are they true? Absolutely not. But do they look good? Hopefully. The magistrate's assistant glides past collecting scrolls. You hand yours over with the blankest expression you can muster. Inside, you're screaming. You spend the rest of the morning checking for seal impressions. Each document must be stamped with the official bureau mark, an iron red square with the emblem of the Han court. Yours is slightly off-center, but hey, no one's perfect. As the sun creeps closer to its zenith, you pause to rub your eyes. Your fingers are stained with ink. Your knees are sore from sitting cross-legged. Your stomach growls again, and still, only morning. The sun finally peeks over the eaves, casting long stripes of golden light across the stone floor of the bureau hall. This should feel calming, like the start of a fresh new day. But for you, it's just a reminder you're already late. Not for work, you're at your desk, but late for the market walk. It's a tradition, unofficial and frowned upon, where clerks run errands mid-morning. The secret purpose: scarf down real food and maybe hear some gossip that hasn't yet been written in official ink. You tuck your tally stick into your sleeve and stand slowly, groaning a little more than necessary. The magistrate's assistant gives you a sharp look, but you respond with a subtle nod toward your ink bottle, empty. Technically, this counts as a supply run. Technically, the streets are in full swing now. You push open the gate and enter the chaos of morning commerce. Ox carts trundle past loaded with clay pots and bundles of barley. Vendors shout over one another, hawking everything from pickled plums to fire-starting pebbles. One guy tries to sell you a goose with exceptional judgment. You keep walking. Your favorite ink seller is a few stalls down. He's already got a fresh stick of lamp black and pine resin waiting. He gives you a knowing wink as you hand over your copper coins. You owe me 3 characters. Next time, he jokes. Translation: he wants you to write a love poem for his daughter's wedding. Again. On the way back, you duck into a noodle stall. It's hidden behind a wagon full of umbrellas and absolutely not approved for official use. But you've got a few moments to spare, and your stomach has declared mutiny. The stall owner is already boiling another batch when he sees you. Morning scholar, he greets, which is both flattering and wildly inaccurate. You slurp your noodles with focus hot broth, pickled mustard greens, a few strips of pork fat. One of the rare joys in your otherwise ink-stained life. You overhear 2 nearby merchants whispering about rising tariffs on hemp and wonder if it's true. If it is, your desk will be flooded with petition scrolls by tomorrow. Historians still argue whether these market alleys were key hubs of informal information exchange or simply chaotic distractions for bored bureaucrats. Judging by the way your ears perk up when someone says tribute tax changes, you're leaning toward the former. Suddenly, someone calls your name. You nearly choke on a noodle. It's Ping, another junior clerk. He's jogging toward you, scroll in hand, panic on his face. "You've been summoned," he says breathlessly. Magistrate needs assistance in the hearing room. Case about a stolen ox. You freeze. A courtroom summons means you're either being asked to assist or you're about to be blamed. You throw down a few coins for the noodles and follow Ping heart pounding. The hearing room is a cold stone chamber with a long wooden platform at the front and benches on either side. You step inside, bow to the magistrate, and try not to sweat through your robes. Before you stands a wiry farmer, maybe in his 60s, eyes wide with righteous indignation. Beside him is a younger man in fancier hemp clothing, definitely related, but clearly richer. Both are shouting. "My ox," yells the elder. "Our ox," retorts the younger. The magistrate sighs deeply and turns to you. Review their family registry. Confirm the livestock ownership. He says it like it's easy. Like the Han census records weren't a nightmare of half-legible entries and missing stamps. You unfurl the household scroll and begin cross-checking names. The ox is listed under the grandfather deceased last spring. Ownership wasn't transferred formally. You point this out quietly. The elder erupts. "I fed that beast since it was a calf. This fool wants to sell it to pay for a silk robe." The younger scowls. "It's for my wedding." You glance at the magistrate. He looks bored. "Split custody," he mutters. Even days to the old man, odd days to the groom. Both parties protest, but it's done. The case is recorded, and you're tasked with logging the verdict. Back at your desk, you're still thinking about that ox. Somewhere in the countryside, there's a very confused animal about to be shared like a clay pot. You dip your brush in ink and begin writing, "Resolved 1 ox joint custodianship. Condition of marriage pending. No further disputes logged." You add the magistrate's stamp and roll it tightly. The absurdity of it all makes you chuckle softly. Ping leans over from his desk. You laugh now, he says, but wait until you get assigned to property border disputes. Those never end. You sigh, eyes drifting toward the stack of scrolls on your left. At least 50 left to file before lunch. Each one with characters so cramped it's like decoding bird tracks in mud. Still a small victory. You didn't get yelled at today. Not yet, anyway. You scratch your ear with the back end of your brush, smearing a bit of ink on your cheek, which you won't notice until hours later, when an assistant politely hands you a damp cloth with the phrase, "Your face has something official." Welcome to another hour in the life of a Han Dynasty paper warrior. By the time you return to your desk, the sun is high, your ink has partially dried, and your spine feels like it's been forged from bent bamboo. You barely settle in when you notice a new scroll in your inbox tray marked with the imperial blue ribbon. Not good. The scroll bears the salt tax symbol, one of the most lucrative and closely watched commodities in the Han bureaucracy. You break the seal, unroll it slowly, and your stomach tightens. It's a shipment manifest from 2 weeks ago, approved and stamped by you. The problem: the figures don't match the official records now coming from the Central Archive. According to your records, the salt shipment weighed exactly 2,000 jin. According to this new document, only 1,500 made it to the inspection post. That's 500 jin of salt missing. You glance around. Ping is hunched over, chewing on his brush handle. 2 senior scribes are loudly discussing the calligraphy merits of their favorite Confucian quotations. No one seems to notice the icy sweat now forming on your neck. You reread the document. The cart driver, the scribe who copied it, the official who signed it. They're all different names from what you recall. Someone changed something. Or worse, someone's been skimming off the top and letting your signature cover the trail. Historians still debate how widespread corruption was in the Han civil system. Some claim these incidents were isolated. Others say they were so routine they practically functioned as an unofficial tax. You weigh your options. Option 1. Flag it. Report the discrepancy to the magistrate and risk being implicated as part of the scam, or worse, as an incompetent. Option 2. Quietly correct the figure and hope the oversight fades into the abyss of paperwork. You sit there, brush poised above a blank slip, doing mental calligraphy instead of real writing. In your head, the character for Salt begins to look a lot like Disaster. Just then, the magistrate's assistant walks past, humming a tune and tossing candied plums into his mouth. He pauses at your desk and peers over the scroll. "Oh, that one," he says with a raised eyebrow. "Curious, isn't it?" Then he walks off. You stare after him. That was not comforting. You finally copy the scroll, exactly as received, with one tiny annotation figures under review. It's the bureaucratic equivalent of saying, "Don't ask me." You slide the scroll into the pending clarification basket, which everyone pretends is regularly checked, but is in fact a deep pit of forgotten issues. Congratulations. You just dodged or delayed a disaster. To take the edge off, you turn to something easier. Rice shipment ledgers. Rows and rows of predictable, boring, mathematically blessed rice data. Every number matches. Every seal is clean. It's like a warm bath for your brain. You allow yourself to relax for a moment. Your calligraphy flows smoothly. Your brush strokes are elegant. Almost too elegant. You pause. Wait, this might actually be enjoyable. Just then, a clerk trips over a floor mat and flings his inkstone into the air. It arcs like a theatrical prop, and lands squarely on your scroll. The black puddle blooms like a mushroom cloud. The room goes silent. The offending clerk stammers apologies, but your scroll is ruined. You stare at the mess. It looks like abstract art. An avant-garde statement on the futility of paperwork. You hold up the scroll. Well, you say quietly, "I guess the rice is burnt." A few clerks chuckle. Even Ping smiles. You take the scroll, fold it in half, then again, and drop it ceremonially into the waste pile, a basket already overflowing with bureaucratic tragedy. You pull a fresh scroll from your satchel and begin again, this time making the characters even neater. Why? Because despite everything, you still care about your work. Or maybe you're just too stubborn to hand in something subpar. Outside, a bell tolls again, not for lunch yet. The magistrate is now deep in conversation with an imperial courier in the corner of the room. You catch only a few words: edict, conscription, Western frontier. You raise an eyebrow. If conscription orders are coming in, it means someone's about to be very busy, and someone else might be drafted. You glance nervously at the other clerks. A few are trying not to look panicked. After all, even officials weren't always exempt. Historians still argue whether Han Dynasty bureaucrats were completely immune to military service. In theory, your ink-stained fingers protect you. In practice, all bets are off when the empire needs warm bodies. You dip your brush again and continue. The act of writing, stroke by stroke, ink to slip, calms your nerves. This, at least, is something you control. A butterfly flutters in through the open window. It hovers over your desk before flitting away. You blink, wondering if you imagined it. Ping slides a boiled egg across the desk toward you. "Peace offering," he says, "for earlier ink disasters." You nod grateful and crack it open slowly. The yolk is pale and dry, a little like the rest of your life right now. Still, it's not the worst moment of the day. That, no doubt, is still coming. You lean back against the wall and close your eyes for 10 seconds. Exactly 10. Any more, and someone might accuse you of sleeping on the job. You open them again, and the scrolls are still there, waiting, always. Lunch arrives, not with fanfare, but with a smell slightly sour porridge carried in clay bowls by an assistant whose main qualification seems to be not tripping. You put down your brush and stretch joints clicking in protest. Your hand is cramped, your knees numb, and your stomach has declared a full rebellion. You shuffle to the back courtyard where a few cracked benches circle a stone basin. The others are already digging in. Ping is mid-rant about ink rations again. 3 scrolls a day, he huffs, blowing on his porridge. That's all they give us now. I had to split 1 sheet for 2 tax cases yesterday. 2. You sit beside him and peer into your bowl. The porridge is white rice, diluted to near transparency, with 2 lonely, pickled turnips floating like survivors clinging to driftwood. A beetle crawls nearby. You don't swat it. That takes energy. You glance around the courtyard. Most of the junior clerks are eating in silence, heads bowed, not out of reverence, but resignation. A few try to eat while balancing scrolls on their knees, reviewing their writing as if cramming for an exam that never ends. Historians still argue, you say aloud to no one in particular, whether Han bureaucrats were underfed by design or just collateral damage in budget reform. Ping snorts rice. A senior clerk wanders past holding a lacquered lunchbox. Inside, you glimpse salted duck and braised yam. The perks of seniority, or family connections. Or as rumor has it, his aunt is married to someone in the censorate. You try not to feel bitter. Fail slightly. The conversation shifts to the recent rumor that a new exam standard is being proposed in the capital. Ping says they'll make everyone memorize even more Confucian texts. Someone else mutters, "What's next?" quoting the Book of Odes in tax reports. You remember the last time you tried quoting a classic in your commentary notes? The magistrate had stared at you for a solid 10 seconds before saying, "Save the poetry for your pillow. Still the porridge warms your belly. The turnips are turnipy." You chew slowly, staring at a cloud drifting overhead. Suddenly, a clerk named Ju from the legal office bursts into the courtyard. His robes are stained, his hair lopsided, and he looks like he just ran a mile barefoot. "They lost the border contract," he shouts. Everyone goes quiet. "Which contract?" Ping asks, already groaning. "The one from Jia'an Prefecture. The one with the land dispute between the irrigation canals and the ancestral shrine." You groan too now. That case involves 7 parties, 3 maps, and a village elder who can't read but insists on drawing his own diagrams. Zhu slumps onto a bench. They think it fell behind a cabinet. "I spent half the morning under the scribe's desk with a lamp." Historians still debate whether the legendary lost scrolls of Han bureaucracy were genuinely misplaced or simply convenient scapegoats for problems no one wanted to solve. You nod sympathetically. Everyone has a lost scroll story. Yours involved a missing grain invoice and a cockroach that ate the corner of the evidence. No one believed you. After lunch, the bowls are stacked turnips fully consumed or discreetly discarded behind the fig tree. You return to your desk to find, surprise, a new bundle of bamboo slips. You don't remember asking for more work, but apparently work asked for you. This new task, tallying livestock, returns from winter tax payments in rural counties. Sheep, oxen, pigs, all neatly categorized, or so you hope. You untie the bundle and are immediately greeted by chaos. One slip reads, "Ox brown 3 legs." Another says, "Pigs several." One just has a drawing of what might be a chicken or a dragon. You sigh and begin sorting. You suspect half these farmers bribed the local recorder to exaggerate their losses and avoid taxes. The other half likely just don't know how to count past 10. You pause at one entry. 1 cow known to drink wine. You blink, then underline it twice. If nothing else, it'll make for a good story at the end-of-month banquet, if you're invited, which is a big if. By now, your brush hand is numb again. You flex your fingers, shake out your wrist. Your back creaks as you lean over to fetch your inkstone and notice a rat running along the wall. It stops. You both stare at each other. "Don't even think about it," you mutter. The rat blinks, then scurries off. Ping passes by and casually drops a folded paper on your desk. "Message for you," he says. You unfold it. It's a poem, anonymous, badly written. Something about a moonlit courtyard and the perfume of plum blossoms. You look around. Ping is already gone whistling. It could be a joke, or a secret admirer, or a weird metaphor about taxation. The Han Civil Service is a strange place. You tuck the note into your scroll case just in case. A bell rings again. Afternoon duties await. You take one last sip of cold tea and return to your slips. Brush dipped, spine straightened. Just another half day to go. You ease back into your seat and squint at the next stack of scrolls. Afternoon light slants across the floor, now carving long, warm lines through the bureau like some celestial sundial reminding you just how much is left. Your current task: transcribe an edict from the provincial governor's office. The message is short, but the characters are maddeningly complex. Your brush hovers. As you study, the first character is that military conscription or silk storage inventory. One stray tick changes everything. You glance at the seal again, it's faint smudged, and the governor's calligraphy is notoriously theatrical. You've seen dramatic flourishes so aggressive they've looped a tree radical into looking like a chicken's foot. Still, you get to work. You carefully begin transcribing the characters one by one. The brush glides slowly. Stroke, lift, stroke, breathe. Don't rush. You're not just writing words, you're defining policy. If your copy says the wrong thing, someone could be punished, reassigned, or end up wearing armor instead of weaving it. The clerk beside you sneezes violently, jerking his hand and blotting his ledger. "Sorry," he mutters. "Dust." You nod without looking up. It's always dust. The air in this bureau is a cocktail of mildew, soot, and crushed beetle shell from the red dye used in ink. You finish the first slip. It looks clean, precise. You allow yourself a rare silent moment of pride. Then you read the second line and feel your stomach drop. You miswrote the governor's title. You stare at the offending character. It's one brushstroke off turning imperial delegate into district traitor. You consider dabbing it out, but that's frowned upon. Worse, sometimes it's taken as an attempt to forge a correction. You could rewrite the whole slip. That'll take time, and you're already behind. You do it anyway. As you copy the lines again, you mutter under your breath. This is why scribes die young. Ping overhears. Scribes don't die young, he says cheerfully. They just turn into paper. A senior clerk chuckles from across the room. That's what happened to Lou. Folded himself into a tax scroll and disappeared. Everyone laughs just a little too hard. Humor is the only affordable therapy in the Han bureaucracy. Your hand cramps again. You switch brushes, grateful for the spare. The old one goes into the bamboo holder with a sigh. You glance at the bristles frayed tired. Just like you. The magistrate's voice floats in from the inner chamber. He's consulting with another official, words muffled through the carved screens. You catch only phrases: corruption inquiry, new draft list, plague in the western districts. You write faster. Historians still argue whether Han administrators truly understood the scale of crises occurring in their districts or merely recorded them with elegant detachment. You lean toward the latter, especially when the imperial reports gloss over locust swarms as mild agricultural disturbances. Just as you're finishing your fourth corrected copy of the edict, a cup of tea appears on your desk. No explanation. You look up and see the magistrate's assistant walking away. Was this a peace offering or a test? You sniff the tea. Smells normal. You sip. It's warm, slightly bitter standard roasted barley brew. Maybe he's just in a good mood today. Or maybe he saw your miswritten scroll and is planning to test your loyalty with increasingly cryptic favors. Paranoia is just part of the job. As the hour creeps forward, a merchant appears at the doorway. His robes are spotless, his smile too bright. He's carrying a tray of small porcelain cups and a polished lacquered box. Tea, he announces, for the hard-working gentlemen of the administrative hall. You and every other clerk look up, instinct sharpening. Free food from merchants is never just food. It's bait. Wrapped in sweet steamed buns and exotic leaves. The magistrate emerges, arms crossed. "Who are you representing?" he asks flatly. The merchant bows. "Just a humble salt trader from the Eastern Ward, expressing gratitude for the recent tariff adjustment." The magistrate's eyebrow twitches. "And what adjustment would that be?" The merchant blinks, stammers. "Oh, I must have my apologies. Perhaps I misread." He's escorted out faster than you can say bribe, but he leaves the tea tray. It sits in the hallway, untouched, radiating suspicion. You all return to your scrolls. You check your ink low again. You flag a passing assistant and request more. He nods, disappears. He'll probably return by the time your grandchildren retire. You push through the remaining edicts, one about relocating 30 families due to flooding. One about raising rice quotas in the southern prefectures. One about punishing officials who miss their seal quotas. That last one makes you sweat. Ping slides a scroll across to you. "Did you see this?" he whispers. You unroll it. It's a badly drawn cartoon of the magistrate holding a giant seal in one hand and a whip in the other. The caption says, "Seal the deal, or else," you snort. "Don't get caught with that," you say, handing it back. "Unless you want to seal documents with your teeth." Ping grins and hides it under his desk mat. Outside, thunder rumbles. A storm is building. You hope it waits until after you get home. Otherwise, your scrolls and your shoes will dissolve in the street. Your calligraphy becomes slower now. The ink runs thinner. The air grows still. Even the laughter fades. Just the sound of brushes, the shuffle of sandals, the occasional sigh. A typical afternoon in the Empire's grand, inescapable machine. And still more slips to go. Somewhere between the 14th and 15th scroll of the afternoon, your thoughts begin to float. Not dreamily, just slightly out of sync. You blink and reread the same line 3 times. Your brushstroke wobbles. You've written county pig census instead of county poll results. Close enough. You set the brush down and rub your eyes. That ink you requested an hour ago, still missing. You dip the very last drop from your stone, knowing it won't last the next paragraph. Just as you begin forming the next character, someone coughs beside you loudly. You look up. It's Ju again, the legal clerk holding a slightly crumpled document. His face says, "I'm about to ruin your day. This was in your tray," he says, setting the scroll down. "Signed 3 days ago. But I found it under my ledger pile." You look at it. It's a memo about merchant tariffs from a traveling inspector. Urgent, dated, and not where it was supposed to be. Your tray should have been cleared daily. That means someone either misplaced it or you did. Panic tiptoes up your spine. You flip open your filing book. You don't remember reading this one, but then again, the past few days have blurred into one ink-stained eternity. Ping peers over and winces. "That's the memo Magistrate Liang asked for yesterday," he whispers. "Of course it is." Historians still argue whether Han office systems used genuine procedural logic or were simply a series of creative rituals held together by fear and stamps. You're currently leaning toward creative rituals. You do the only thing you can pretend you just found it this moment. You write a fresh cover slip, attach a note that says, "Received late origin unclear," and mark it as pending response. Technically honest. Technically not your fault. Technically plausible deniability. But your stomach knows the truth. You turn back to your inkstone. It's dry. Utterly, totally dry. You stare at it like a scolded puppy. Then you look across the room at the assistant who still hasn't returned. You raise an eyebrow. He shrugs. They're boiling a fresh batch, he calls. You sigh. You've now reached the bureaucratic threshold known as scroll paralysis. No ink, no progress. And the one scroll you did forget is probably going to appear in your performance review like a spider in your rice bowl. Ping slides his inkstone toward you in silent sympathy. You nod. You'll be remembered, you whisper solemnly. Then you pick up your brush again. Time passes. Slowly. The room hums with a quiet rhythm. Brush scratches paper, rustles the occasional thud of a scroll being tossed aside in frustration. And then the tea arrives. Not the suspicious merchant tea. This is the Bureau's afternoon tea, which consists of slightly cooled barley water served in cracked porcelain cups that might date back to the Warring States. It's free, though. You cradle it like treasure. Just as you're about to sip, a junior courier from another district bursts into the room, holding a damp scroll wrapped in cloth. Emergency requisition report, he pants. They need scribes to assist the envoy's office. Everyone freezes. Nobody wants to be loaned to the envoy's office. It's a nightmare of deadlines, double sealing, and constant corrections. You once heard a clerk burst into tears after spending 4 hours rewriting the word tribute because the brushstrokes weren't obedient enough. The magistrate steps out from his chamber. His voice is calm. Select 2 names. An assistant reads a list. Everyone stares at the floor. You hold your breath. Zhu, Ping. Ping gasps like a fish. Zhu looks like he's just been condemned to recopy the entire Analects with a chicken feather. You do not smile. That would be unkind. But inside, a little drumbeat of relief begins to play. As the room returns to normal, the storm finally arrives. Rain hits the tiled roof in fat, angry drops. A leak appears near the corner of the chamber. Someone shifts their scrolls away just in time. The smell of wet stone and ink fills the air. A clerk begins humming a folk song under his breath. You recognize it, something about a girl in Luoyang who sent love notes carved into dried persimmons. You wonder if that's where the terrible poem came from earlier. The hours crawl. You transcribe 3 more reports. One about a stolen shipment of hemp. One about miscounted laborers in the South. One very odd report describing a goose that allegedly spoke human words. You pause. Read it again. Yep, still there. You circle the line and scribble further verification advised. At this point, anything is possible. Historians still debate whether Han record keepers ever embellished reports to amuse themselves, or if such entries reflect genuine rural folklore being dutifully documented. You suspect the truth is, as always, somewhere in the margins. Your borrowed ink is now a faint gray puddle. You finish the final slip, just as the bell chimes again. Afternoon shift done. You lay your brush across the inkstone, like a warrior placing down his sword. You roll your shoulders. You stretch your legs. A bone pops somewhere deep in your hip. The magistrate's assistant returns holding a list. Reminder, he says. Monthly performance logs due tomorrow. Be sure your tallies are complete. You groan quietly. One more task, one more scroll. But that's for tomorrow, you. Today, you survived. Just barely. As you stack your scrolls and try to ignore the looming threat of tomorrow's performance log, a junior clerk arrives with a thick bundle of documents tied together with red string again. You blink. You already processed 1 set of edicts today. This must be a mistake. He grins sheepishly. Special copy order from the provincial archives. They want transcriptions in triplicate. Starting now. You stare at him. Now. There's no arguing. He drops the bundle on your desk with a dull thunk and scurries off like a guilty cat. You unroll the first document. It's a list of rice allotments, death notices, river silt measurements, and a brief complaint about a collapsed well cover. A truly thrilling collection of imperial domestic trivia. You sigh and set to work copying each character with precision. It's the kind of task that requires focus, but not thought. Your hands move, your mind floats, and that's when the accident happens. You're halfway through a slip when your brush slips sideways. One wrong flick, and instead of grain quota approved, you've written something dangerously close to grain quota revoked. You stare at the stroke. It's so slight, but disastrous. You freeze. Options flicker through your head. The slip is almost perfect. You could just cross out the character, but corrections are frowned upon. Too messy. Too obvious. You could recopy the entire thing. You groan. That's the right answer. But it hurts. Still, you tear it out. Roll up a fresh one and begin again. Stroke. Lift. Breathe. Across the room, someone sneezes. A breeze flutters through the half-open window. A sheet of paper lifts off your desk and glides to the floor like a dying bird. You retrieve it without ceremony. Moments later, Ping returns soaked, hair flattened, robes dripping. "How was the envoy's office?" You ask, not looking up. He shudders. "I spent an hour listening to a man debate whether the word for tribute should come before or after the name of a goat." You nod solemnly. Brave soul. He drops into his chair with the energy of wet laundry. You slide your half-full teacup toward him. He sips it like it's life itself. You return to your copying. The next slip goes smoother. Then another. You slip into a rhythm again. Ink brush scroll. The world narrows. It's just you and characters that are older than your grandparents. And then halfway through a sentence about regional rice taxes, you hear a sharp tap-tap from across the room. It's the magistrate. He stands beside a table where a bamboo complaint box rests sealed, dusty, rarely touched. He opens it. Gasps ripple across the room. The complaint box is almost sacred. No one uses it unless they're desperate or foolish. The magistrate reads silently, then raises an eyebrow. He gestures for his assistant, who retrieves the slip. They whisper. The assistant disappears. The box closes again, and just like that, everyone pretends nothing happened. But now, you're curious. What complaint was so bold it made it into the box? Ping whispers, "Bet it was about the ink ration." You whisper back, "Bet it was about you stealing my ink." "I loaned it," he hisses. You smile faintly. Still, the air in the room has changed. A little more alert, a little less sleepy. The magistrate disappears into his chamber again. The rest of you return to your work with the delicate, precise panic of people realizing someone's watching. Historians still debate whether the Han Dynasty complaint boxes actually led to reforms, or whether they served as a clever tool to identify troublemakers. Either way, they made everyone nervous. You finish your third copy of the edict. Roll it carefully. Stamp it with your seal. You feel the light shift. Outside, the rain has stopped. Sunlight glints off the roof tiles. A cool breeze sweeps through the chamber. For a second, the smell of ink and dust is replaced by something clean, earth and rain and stone. You look out the window and see the city below. beginning to glow. Street vendors reopen their stalls. Cloths are wrung out. Scrolls are carried in oilskin pouches. Even the oxen pulling carts seem more relaxed, as if they too appreciate that the afternoon is drawing to a close. Then you spot her, a woman in blue robes, standing near the market gate, looking up toward your building. Her expression unreadable. Her hands clasped in front of her, waiting. For someone, you blink, look back down. The scroll in your lap still needs 2 signatures. When you glance up again, she's gone. Maybe you imagined her, maybe not. The clock bell sounds softly, an hour to closing. You check your stack, 5 scrolls left. You roll your shoulders, crack your knuckles, and get back to work. Stroke, lift, seal. Only 5 more. You begin the last 5 scrolls with the precision of a surgeon and the desperation of a man watching his last candle burn down. Each stroke of the brush feels heavier than the last. Your fingers cramp, your eyes twitch, but you're too close to stop. The first scroll is easy, an agricultural report from the Yellow River Delta. It contains predictable numbers and boring commentary, your favorite kind. But the second, it's a beast, an imperial order about resource optimization and auxiliary census structuring. In other words, total nonsense wrapped in official jargon. You read the paragraph twice and still can't tell if they're requesting new tax forms or abolishing grain quotas. You sigh, look around. Everyone else is head down, drowning in parchment. You lean toward Ping. "Hey, you," whisper. "What's an auxiliary census structure?" He doesn't look up. Something you'll be blamed for when the numbers don't add up. Fair. You start copying. Carefully. You take no liberties. You don't interpret. You replicate. Because in Han bureaucracy, initiative is punished. Obedience is rewarded, and ink is forever. Your third scroll of the batch includes a new regulation on household salt rations. You snort. Earlier, you were nearly implicated in a salt tax discrepancy, and now you're writing the rules. Bureaucratic irony. You pen the words equitable distribution, knowing full well the noble families will ignore every syllable. Historians still argue whether Han rationing edicts ever made it past the capital in their original form. More likely, they transformed as they passed through each layer of local governance, becoming softer, blurrier, until they resembled nothing more than polite suggestions. Scroll 4 is short, almost too short. It reads, "All scribes in district offices must henceforth include personal seals on duplicate reports." Your heart stops. You just sent 3 duplicates this morning, without your seal. You glance toward the magistrate's chamber. The door is closed. The assistant is nowhere in sight. You feel a drop of sweat run down your temple. Maybe no one noticed. Maybe it's a new rule. Maybe you quickly dip your brush and stamp your seal 3 times on a fresh slip. Then you slip it into the outgoing pile on top of your morning copies, like a cat burying something suspicious in the garden. Problem solved. Maybe. And then the 5th scroll arrives personally. The magistrate himself appears at your desk, his robe whispering across the floor, eyes unreadable. He carries a small scroll tied in green thread. Green means personal correspondence from a superior. You gulp. He places it gently on your desk and says only, "Translate it into bureaucratic form. Use your discretion." You wait for him to leave before unrolling it. It's a letter, written in plain, clumsy script. not from an official, from a village elder in the hills near Chang'an. It describes a minor flood, 2 collapsed rice terraces, and a request for extra grain allotment. The old man's writing is untrained, full of regional slang and crossed-out words, but it's heartfelt. He mentions the children who helped dig drainage ditches. He names the families who pooled their rice to help neighbors. He closes with, "We do not ask for more than fairness. We ask to be remembered." You stare at the scroll for a long time. Then you begin to write. Your version is clean, formal, properly formatted, but you preserve his phrasing. You even add a note. Original message included a list of community contributions exceeding regional expectations. You finish the scroll with your seal and place it carefully in the priority tray. It's the most human moment of your day. The bell chimes again. End of day. Scrolls are bundled, desks wiped, brushes rinsed and laid flat to dry. You stand slowly. Every joint protests. Your back feels like it's aged 10 years in one afternoon. You pack your inkstone, your brush, and your ledger into the satchel. Ping is already waiting by the door. You going to the tea shop? You shake your head. Not tonight. He nods. Tomorrow then. You step out into the twilight. The rain has passed. The city smells of stone and steamed buns. Lanterns are being lit. A flute plays somewhere distant. You breathe in deeply. For a moment, it's almost peaceful. As you pass the market gate, you pause. You half expect to see the woman in blue robes again. She isn't there. Just a beggar, feeding a dog with leftover dumplings, and a merchant packing away bolts of silk. Still, you look for a second longer. Then you turn and begin the long walk home scroll. Satchel heavy at your side, heart a little lighter. You survived another day inside the machine. You trudge the stone paths toward home, soles slapping against puddles, still lingering from the rain. Your legs ache with the weight of every copied scroll, every nervous glance, every brushstroke too thick or too faint. But the city's changing now, softening. Dusk in Chang'an feels like the empire exhaling. Vendors call out their final offers. Children chase each other through alleyways. The air smells like fried garlic and boiled chestnuts. And for once, you're not thinking about ink. Your neighborhood is quieter, narrower. Walls faded with time moss creeping over cobblestones. You pass the old well with the broken cover, the same one someone complained about this morning. You chuckle to yourself. See? It made it to your desk after all. Your home is a 2-room affair. One for sleeping, one for pretending you have a life outside the office. You unlatch the door and step into the cool darkness. The oil lamp sputters as you light it, casting long shadows on the walls. Your mother's already dozing in the corner, wrapped in 2 layers of blankets despite the humidity. She mumbles something about boiled millet and dreaming of plum wine. You nod respectfully, even in sleep. Her authority remains absolute. You sit at the low table, stretching your legs under it with a hiss. The pain is real. Bureaucratic work, they said, is clean and safe. No danger, no fields, no swords. Just scrolls and stamps. They never warned you that your spine would rebel by your 30th birthday. You pull out your personal scroll, the one for copying classics. Every clerk has one. Not for work, not for promotion. Just practice. Or habit. Or the dim, fading hope that one day you might take the imperial exams again. You open to your current passage, a paragraph from the Analects. It reads, "To see what is right and not do it is want of courage." You sigh, appropriate. You dip your brush into fresh ink, finally restocked from this morning's emergency, and begin to write. Stroke, pause, repeat. Each character forms like a small ritual, helping your mind quiet. You don't have to rush. There's no seal required, no magistrate looming. It's just you and Confucius and the sound of your mother softly snoring behind you. Historians still debate whether Han civil service was a path to enlightenment or just a slow descent into controlled madness. On nights like this, you wonder if it's a bit of both. Halfway through the second line, there's a knock at the door. You freeze. Knocks this late are rare. Bad news comes in scrolls, not fist taps. You stand brush in hand and unlatch the door. It's a boy, maybe 10. Robe's too big. He bows quickly, hands you a folded note, and disappears down the alley before you can say a word. You close the door and unroll it. The handwriting is careful, formal. It's from the magistrate's assistant. Clerk, your transcription of the elder's flood letter was noted. Magistrate requests you accompany him tomorrow for an assessment tour of the southern districts. Prepare accordingly. You read it again and again. Assessment tour. That's unheard of for someone at your level. Either you're being rewarded or tested or used. Maybe all three. You don't know what to feel. Flattered. Terrified, curious. You fold the note and slide it into your scroll pouch. Your personal copywork will have to wait. You extinguish the lamp, crawl into your mat, and lie awake. Your body wants sleep. Your mind replays every decision you made today. That unsigned slip, the tea, the salt tax scroll, the mysterious woman, the talking goose. You chuckle softly. This job really is turning you into paper. Outside, the city settles deeper into night. Somewhere, a dog barks once. A bell chimes far off. The sound of civilization holding itself together. You close your eyes, and just as sleep begins to rise, you remember tomorrow is performance log day. Of course, morning breaks faster than expected, as if the sun couldn't wait to remind you about your performance log. You sit up slowly, head foggy from too little sleep and too many thoughts. Your mat is stiff. Your shoulder aches, and the skin on your writing hand is permanently stained black at the edge of your thumbnail. You stretch until your back pops and hear your mother mutter, "Don't forget your lunch." You hadn't planned on remembering it anyway. As you step out into the morning air, the world is already humming vendors, setting up sandals, shuffling across brick alleys. The distant groan of an ox who's probably still being shared between two brothers. You glance toward the south where the magistrate's tour is supposed to begin today. But first, your performance log. Back at the bureau, the atmosphere is tense. Every clerk is hunched over their desk, whispering numbers, flipping scrolls, muttering to themselves. It's a ritual of massaging the truth. Not a full lie, but a careful realignment of memory and reality. You sit at your desk and unroll your logbook. It's a grid dates categories, achievements, seals. You stare at it like it might sprout legs and walk away. Your actual metrics, modest, honest, but also unimpressive. So you begin crafting. Scrolls copied 117. You bump it from the real number closer to 91. Errors flagged and corrected. 6. Feels honest. Petitions processed. 9. That's true. You remember the ox. Then comes the trickier section, special contributions. That one's always up for interpretation. You write assisted with sensitive correspondence from provincial offices, which is technically true. The flood letter was sensitive and provincial. Ping slides into a seat beside you, holding a steamed bun in one hand and his own log in the other. "Did you list the envoy's assignment?" he asks with a full mouth. "I didn't list it, you say. I survived it." He grins and takes another bite. You flip the log to the back where personal observations are requested. Supposedly optional. Supposedly safe. You hesitate. Then write, "Current systems are functional but vulnerable to duplication errors and seal misplacement. Recommend reassessment of record validation and supply inventory." You pause. It sounds bold, too bold. You scribble a quieter follow-up underneath. Also, request additional ink. That's better. Historians still argue whether personal reflections and performance logs were ever read by anyone above the assistant's desk. Some believe they were filed away, never opened. Others suggest they formed quiet dossiers tracking the ambitions and complaints of low-level clerks. You look around. Everyone's finishing up. Scrolls are being sealed, logs rolled and stacked. The magistrate emerges from his office, dressed more plainly than usual. No silk, just sturdy traveling robes. He addresses the room. Assessment tour begins now. 2 clerks will accompany. You know who you are. You rise, feeling every eye in the room land on you. Ping gives you a nod of encouragement. Bring back a souvenir. You follow the magistrate out the front gates, down the steps, and into the market district. The sun is climbing, and already your robe sticks to your back. The magistrate walks briskly, pausing at shops, nodding to vendors asking questions. He doesn't write anything down. He doesn't have to. His memory is a ledger, sharper than any stylus. At the grain stall, he asks the merchant, "How many sacks moved last week?" "At least 32, the man says. "Your invoice said 29. The merchant swallows hard. You pretend to study a gourd nearby. Next, you reach the canal. A group of workers is repairing a water gate. One of them bows and says, "Clerk Shu, you handled our irrigation forms last season." You nod surprised. You vaguely remember the name. Something about a silt blockage and a missing engineer. The magistrate watches the exchange. "You follow your paperwork," he says, not unkindly. "That's rare." You shrug. "Sometimes it follows me." You stop at a household along the southern wall. Flood damage still visible. Mud caked on foundation stones, baskets hanging from roof beams to stay dry. The family invites you both in. Tea is offered. Refused. The patriarch bows deeply. "We received the letter. We are grateful." The magistrate nods toward you. He transcribed it. You freeze. They bow to you this time. You wave it off. Back outside, you try to keep your voice light. "I wasn't sure you actually read those personal scrolls." He looks at you. "I don't read all of them. Just the ones written like someone still cares." That shuts you up. You walk in silence for a while. The city continues around you. Stone streets hanging laundry incense drifting from temple doors. A courier dashes past, shouting something about a goat on fire. You both ignore it. Eventually, you return to the bureau. The magistrate disappears inside. You stay outside for a breath longer. Ping opens the door. Well, what? "You get promoted." You laugh. "I got a compliment." "Close enough." You settle back into your desk, brush in hand. The day isn't done yet. But something's shifted. And for once, you don't mind the weight of the ink. You return to your desk like a soldier, limping back from battle. Not because you were wounded, but because you now understand the terrain in a new, unfortunate way. The magistrate's compliment echoes in your head, circling like a moth that isn't quite ready to land. You reach for your ink brush and pause. Right. Performance logs are done. Assessment tours complete. Now, it's back to the real battle daily operations. The unglamorous mountain of mundane. Today's assignment: finalizing tribute tallies from the outer prefectures. You flip through the slips with something between dread and curiosity. Bamboo slips scrawled with inventory lists, wrapped in cloth or tied with string. Peaches, sandalwood, goat hides, 10 bundles of aromatic moss, whatever that is. You wonder if the capital ever actually receives half these things, or if some caravan driver swaps them for dumplings halfway through the journey. You begin tallying. The rules are simple. Compare what's listed on the original requisition form with what the clerk in the outer prefecture says actually arrived. If they match, stamp and file. If not, welcome to an afternoon of polite suspicion. Slip after slip passes through your hands. You mark discrepancies. You update notations. You wonder briefly if anyone would notice if you just wrote all in order and took an early lunch. But no, you've already been noticed. Stroke, seal, file. The fourth tribute item gives you pause. One carved jade tortoise marked for Emperor's Garden. The carving is supposedly a good luck offering. You check the delivery slip. It says substituted with pine wood replica due to unforeseen damage by donkey. You blink. You reread. The phrase is there clear as a mountain stream. You stare at the slip and write a small annotation. Recommend follow-up. Severity of donkey event unclear. You pass it into the correction queue and return to your pile. Historians still argue whether tribute substitution was an accepted norm in Han administration or a sign of increasing provincial indifference. You, for one, are beginning to believe that donkey-related damage is vastly underreported. Ping drops into a seat beside you holding a pastry. They had sesame buns at the outer vendor, he says, as if he just returned from paradise. You raise an eyebrow. Did you bring me one? He pretends not to hear. Instead, he slides a fresh scroll your way from the post office, marked as urgent but non-lethal. Your favorite kind. You open it. It's from the archivist of the taxation division. Apparently, a misfiled property record from 3 years ago has resurfaced right under the floor tiles during renovations. And guess who signed the original form? You stare at the character. Your signature, 3 years younger and clearly more optimistic, smirks up at you. The scroll explains that the land has since been sold 3 times, once to a nobleman, once to a tea merchant, and once confusingly to a woman who claimed to be a reincarnated crane. You consider writing a reply that just says, "Good luck." Instead, you begin drafting a damage control memo. Polite formal, full of elegant phrases like clerical ambiguity, archival irregularity, and temporal confusion. While writing, you glance up at the office walls. Each panel is decorated with faded paintings of moral parables, Confucius advising a weeping scholar, a boy sacrificing his winter coat to warm a scroll. Inspirational stuff. You've started to wonder whether the weeping scholar just failed his scroll audit. Ping notices your stare. Do you ever think about quitting? You answer honestly. Every third brushstroke. He nods. Same. Still neither of you moves. Neither of you stops writing. A courier rushes in this one with a minor emergency. 2 officials at a nearby precinct have filed overlapping jurisdiction claims over a duck pond. The issue, egg taxation. You glance around. The magistrate is busy. The assistant looks the other way. All eyes land on you. Clerk Shu says the courier. They'd like you to mediate. You stare blankly. He shrugs. They say you handled the ox case with elegance. You groan. The ox again. You gather your notes and rise. The duck pond is not far. The two officials stand like rivals in a stage play, each insisting the pond is in their jurisdiction because their grandfathers fished there first. You examine the maps. You examine the duck. It honks. After 20 minutes, you draw a line through the center of the pond and declare it neutral territory. The duck waddles over and settles peacefully. Problem solved. You return to the bureau just as the lanterns are being lit. The air smells of smoke and damp scroll fibers. You sit again. Finish the tribute slips. Sign the property memo. Another day done, mostly. You dip your brush one last time and write the daily closing mark on your ledger. A simple, practiced character, meaning complete. Then you hesitate. Next to it, you add another mark of crane, just a small one. You blow on the ink to dry. You gather your tools, roll your scrolls, and nod to Ping, who's already snoring over his desk. Outside, the sky is deepening into night. Tomorrow will come. With more scrolls, more strange animals, more impossible tasks. But for now, you walk home with a smile so small, even you can barely feel it. This morning, you decide to take a slightly longer route to the bureau. Not because you're late, miraculously you're not, but because the idea of walking past the same trash cart, the same shouting tofu vendor, and the same half-collapsed shrine for the 7th day in a row makes your soul feel dusty. You pass, instead, through Scholars Row narrow, quieter, paved in uneven stone, where ink sellers and brush makers open their stalls before the city fully stirs. You see an old calligraphy master sweeping his doorstep with a brush almost as tall as he is. He gives you a polite nod. You nod back, forgetting for a moment that you're just a clerk and not some wandering poet. You arrive at the bureau, refreshed, until you see what's waiting on your desk. A stack of unbound slips, untied, unsorted, unsigned. The worst kind of stack. A puzzle dumped out with no corners. You sit, roll your sleeves, and begin. Turns out, it's a mess of land transfer records from a newly annexed border province. Half the slips use local dialect. Some are written vertically instead of horizontally. One is written on cloth. One might be written in fish blood. You sincerely hope not. You press on. The third slip catches your eye. The owner's name is Han Shu. That's your cousin. Or a very unlucky namesake. You check the village. Definitely your cousin's hometown. You didn't even know he owned land. You reread the scroll. The land was seized by the local prefect due to insufficient taxation compliance. You mutter, that tracks. You consider sending him a letter. Then you remember the last letter he sent you had a chicken feather taped to it with the phrase, proof of loyalty. You quietly file the slip and move on. Around mid-morning, the magistrate makes a rare appearance, not in the usual slow sweep through the office, but standing behind you before you even notice. Clerk Shu, he says softly. You jump. He places a small scroll on your desk. We've been asked to provide a district report on bureau morale. I'd like you to handle it. You blink. Me. He nods once, then walks away. You stare at the scroll like it might explode. A morale report. In Han administration. You've seen scribes weep over brush bristles. You've seen fights over seat cushions. Once, a junior clerk resigned after being assigned to write the same edict 6 times. Still, you unroll a blank scroll and begin. You start with the facts: attendance, performance logs, number of completed assignments. Then you move into team harmony. You write generally cooperative environment with occasional tension during ink ration season. You pause. Then add office spirit improved slightly after the reduction in stamp quote.